Fanatec sure has a vast selection of wheels, from round wheels like NASCAR and WRC to GT3 wheels like the Porsche GT3 Cup. In the GT3s, a couple of them will be coming up that will be on the 4 digits. Ouch. However, you don't need to sell your kidney to get something that is at least inspired by the real thing. You could get this instead. In my opinion, the best value in Fanatec's current wheel roster. The McLaren wheel was sent by Fanatec for review, and I also have an affiliate link below if you want to help the channel out. As always, they don't know what is coming out and they have zero input on the video. This is the second generation of the McLaren wheel, as the first one was removed because it was plagued with reliability issues. After all, it's related to McLaren.
I have an issue.
The second release resolved all the problems, changed some details like adding magnetic shifters, while at the same time changing pretty much nothing from the format that made it popular. Now, like it was when it was launched, the McLaren wheel is the most affordable GT-style wheel in Fanatec's wheel selection. It took me over a year to source one of these for review, so when I got it, I was pretty stoked. You see, this wheel is mostly a one-to-one replica of the McLaren wheel. There's only a few things that change it to make it more sim racing compatible, like the removal of the center rotary dial, swapping the bottom button for a funky switch, and adding an Xbox button. The good news are it still starts at €199, and this is with the new CSL quick release, or if you want the QR1 it will be $299, and in this case it will unlock all of the torque of the DD2. We are talking here about 1990s Honda VTEC levels of 25 Newton meters peak torque. In its chassis, it is paired with quite a big number of buttons, magnetic shifters, includes multi-position rotary switches, and even Xbox compatibility. So, to have a GT3-ish rim at such a price and features, as you can expect, it is something desirable. It's a good looking wheel too. It has lots of good looks, lots of features, and a very decent price. No wonder its popularity is what it is since it came out. Physically, this is a 300mm diameter wheel with 9 buttons, 2 up and down nipple switches. I am sorry, but this is what they are. 2 programmable rotary encoders with 12 positions each, 1 rotary encoder to program the clutch, a 7-position funky switch, 2 magnetic push-pull paddle shifters, and a clutch system, and it also has a small multifunction LED screen. Though the wheel has this carbon effect, it is built out of plastic and has 2 rubber handles.
That's not Alcantara! Not Alcantara!
The construction, despite being plastic, only really creaks when a lot of torsion force is applied. In regular use, it's a non-issue whatsoever. At those 300mm in diameter, it will be in a sweet spot for many. It's not small enough that some will complain about the hands being too close, like it happens with the Formula V2 family, for example, nor too big that it can impede the use of it as a GT rim or even as a Formula 1. Despite the McLaren wheel being made of plastic, it's quite a sturdy wheel. It feels really solid on your hands. The weight is on the lighter side. It weighs with the QR1 about 1,300 grams, and if you have the CSL, it's just a little over a kilo. I think it's very well constructed, really solid, and it feels really good on your hands. I like these rubber grips. Still, I would use it with my gloves. Size-wise, even though it's not a big wheel, it's like it was built to be more on the bigger side because the buttons and the handles are a bit too separated. If you have smaller hands, you might have a difficulty to reach these buttons on the top arc, which are the most important. And speaking of buttons, they have a quite good positive click. They are very typical Fanatec. The P and N buttons, they are more like safety buttons. You really have to commit to them. They have this really nice clickiness to it, but you need to put some force. So put on these 2 buttons maybe something that you will need to be extra safety with, probably a pit limiter or ignition or a starter like that. The nubs or nipple switches, like I call them, they're very typical Fanatec. They wobble a lot, but you know, they're practical and they're also easily reached from your thumbs if you have hands like mine. The rotary funky switch, this is probably one of the best funky switches they build, in my opinion. I'm not sure why they do it only on the McLaren one, but it's probably the one that I like the most. The encoders as well. I think these encoders work better than the Formula ones. They have a very good positive clickiness into them, and I don't feel that they are going to break anytime soon. So I've been using these functionalities on this wheel. While on the Formula, I try to avoid them because I've seen the knobs breaking a lot. Going on the back, of course, we have the shifters here. The shifters are on the smaller side. They are magnetic. They have a very positive clickiness into it. I've used better magnetic shifters, but these do the work, and for the price, you can't really complain about them. Really need to commit to the shifters. I've also seen like extensions for this built on 3D printing. So if you don't like something as small, there are options to make these bigger. And as for the clutches, I don't use clutches generally, but these ones have quite a long actuation that might be useful if, for example, you can only use your hands to play sim racing. So if you want to change them to mappable axes instead of clutches, you can just change the modes over here at the bottom knob, and then you'll have the option for that. Going to the software, this is where the rotary encoder options are chosen. You'll have the option for the top left and right encoder to work as a 12 multi-position encoder, which then can be assigned as individual buttons. For example, it is super useful in Assetto Corsa Competizione, or if you want, can just use them as simple up and down buttons like they would be if they were thumb rotary encoders. The usability of the McLaren wheel is fantastic for me, though it is not perfect. The wheel size, I think it is excellent. I absolutely love the ergonomics. The buttons are fairly well spaced along the turn bar, except for the funky switch or the Xbox button. Those, very much like the rotaries, will require the hand to be lifted to be actuated. The P and N buttons require a lot of force, so they should be used with a car function that is critical to have some safety feature, like for example a pit speed limiter, an ignition, or something along those lines. The wheel size will be just the sweet spot for most. It's very handy, a good happy medium for all usability. At this size, using the bigger Fanatec DD wheel, you can increase the torque quite a bit and then extract a little more fidelity. The ergonomics, once again, fantastic. The wheel is very comfortable. Though it is rubber, it's not too bad on the hand like it was, for example, on the Trustmaster F1 wheel. Still, I would use gloves over the handles. When the temperature is higher, perspiration might pull up over the rubber and then it becomes a sticky mess. At this size, it's not a wheel large enough that small movements in the game must have large hand movements overall, nor small enough that it can feel claustrophobic or exhausting to handle, something commonly attributed to Formula 1 esports / Formula V2 family. I can't discern any creakiness, the wheel feels super stable, it is rigid, it's great to use, and I love using it. Though not everything is good in my opinion, the pedals won't be everyone's cup of tea since they are of push and pull design. Fanatec for this generation decided to use magnetic shifters for them. While not my favorite magnetic shifters, Fanatec does better on the formulas, they are not too bad. The smaller shifter size, while strange at the start, becomes second nature when you start using it, though something needs to be said about the magnetic part of the push and pull function. Activating a shift normally, as in when you pull with your fingers, it's not too much of an issue, but when you start pushing it, when you go the other way around, it becomes substantially more difficult, something that defeats somewhat the push-pull function in my opinion. Main issue with this wheel is the wobbliness of the QR, doesn't matter if it's a QR1 or CSL, and this issue is also present in a lot of Fanatec wheels. New version picks up where the old version left and fixes what it failed. It has a new quick release, new internals, and new magnetic shifters. At its price, $199, it is definitely a bargain, and along with the Trustmaster F1 wheel add-on, it's probably the best sim racing bang for the buck in terms of wheel add-ons. If you're not willing to spend twice as much for a Formula V2 wheel, I guess the McLaren is definitely a no-brainer. And between the McLaren V2 and the Formula 1 Esports V2, I think I would choose the McLaren because you can get it with just the CSL quick release and it will be £50 cheaper. If you are in an old CSL Elite or in a Club Sport or even on a CSL DD or DD Pro, I think choosing the quick release, the cheaper one, will be the best option. In my opinion, a great wheel, but I want to hear your experiences with the McLaren V2 wheel. And also, if you want to check out the differences between the DD1 and the DD Pro, check out the video on this side.